source, and if you want to get the data from multiple data sources at the same time, we might opt for a joins or an association. But while it comes to the fitment with the requirement that we are having, we have to analyze whether the data source that we are going to associate with, data source that we are going to join with, will it be required for in all the cases, or will it be on ad hoc basis? Okay, and that's where we derived that association is a kind of a lazy join which allows us fetching the data as and when required. Okay, but there we also understood that like we have association which allows us fetching the data as and when needed because it's a lazy join. We do have one more I can keyword over here which can be called out as a composition. So when we should be using a composition and when we should be using an association, that was one of the query that we try to tackle with. So for example, if I just talk about the example that we are discussing right now. So for example, we do have a travel, and a travel can have multiple bookings. Okay, so it means for a travel to be generated into the system, there is no prerequisite, but for a booking to be generated into the system, a travel should be there into the system for sure. So travel is the parent, or I can say root of all this architecture. That's what we can think about. Okay. Another thing, travel is composed of n number of bookings. So I can have n number of bookings that can be associated with my single travel, which I am planning from one place to another place. It means there is a composition. Okay. So if you see over here, we created a reusable interface view where we fetch the data from travel. We created a composition on booking, and when it comes to association, when we can use it, that's where we created a, for example, association to currency. So this is a data which is available irrespective of whether the data is available in the travel or not. So the existence of this data is possible even without travel being there into the system. If you are creating the very first travel entry into the application, still the currency master data will be there. Okay, but in other way around, for example, in composition, even without travel existing, booking cannot be there into the system. That's not possible. Okay, so that is a kind of a difference that you can think of when it comes to a composition and association. Now, um, as we are talking about the travel, then definitely it can be a root view entity. And we talk about booking, then it will be an entity, but it won't be a root. It can be parent of something in future, but it cannot be a root for sure because whole entity is revolving around the travel over here. For example, if you are going to define another application, okay, if you are going to create another application which also is somewhat around booking, but at that point in time, booking is the main parent or main root node in our case, then we'll not be able to reuse this. Instead, we have to create our own set of view where the booking has been defined as a root view entity. Okay, so a entity which is a root, definitely it will also be considered as a view entity, but the entity which is a view entity can never be a root view entity. For it to be root view entity, you have to specifically define root view entity over here. Now, another thing is in the view entity that we are defining at the interface layer, will always have the data called select from. Okay. Now, for example, we define that I want to have a composition, but as you can see here, we won't have any on condition. Whereas if I go in booking, you will see the on condition based on which data will be filtered out, saying that which particular travel is associated with which particular booking. And using this filter, the data over here in the composition will also get filtered out, saying if I do have a travel, what all bookings are associated with it. So how the system will be able to filter it out? By using the on condition that we would have specified at the child layer. So this travel has a child node called booking. So that's how the child node will be defined. Then in order for us to make this exposed to the world outside, we create some sort of consumption view. And the consumption view, or in terms of RAP, it's also called projection view. So projection view will always fetch the data and project it from the one where we had already prepared and project it to the outside. So there will be very less amount of logic mostly involved in the projection view. There can be some, there are few things which are supposed to be written on the projection view only, but that will come on that point later. But yeah, in most of the cases, you will see the consumption view being very straightforward, and it will have the data fetched directly. There are a few things, for example, calculated elements and all those stuff, which we are supposed to write on the C view. That's what we'll be coming towards, I guess, in some time. Now, when we are defining interface view, we write at the data source layer that this particular data is having composition. But while we are writing a projection view, in the selection list, we have to specify which particular composition child it is getting redirected to. Same way, if you are defining the composition, if you are defining the C view, or I can say consumption view for the child view, at that point in time in the selection list, you should be specifying what is a parent it is getting redirected to. So you should be specifying redirected to which parent. Okay. And this two view should be activated maybe together, or at least the child view should be activated first. Then only you will be able to activate this. Otherwise, you will start getting an error if because it won't be able to find an active instance into the system. And as you can see here, there will be as projection on and not as select from. Okay. Now, post which we define a service definition over here. So for example, the one in the green is service definition, where we define what all scope is there in the service. So here we define that, okay, these are the things that will get exposed. And here, these are the things that will be there in the service binding. So while you have a service definition, you can have n number of service binding created on top of it. So for example, if I do have a service definition, I can opt to choose and create a service binding. So for example, if I do have a service definition over here, I created a service binding which is of type OData V2. Going forward, for example, I want to create a service binding which is of type OData V4. Then the OData service that will get generated out of it will be a OData V4 kind of service. So for that, all you have to do is on the service definition for which you want to define service binding, create a new service binding. Ensure the name that you are giving over here is a unique one. Okay, so in the pop-up, you can specify which particular service definition should be the reference. Here you can specify ZUI travels, for example, over here, and I'll just say V4. Okay, and I'll just say travel service, but in the V4, for example. And then you will be able to define a service binding. So for example, I'm defining OData V4 for UI. So what is the difference when it comes to a UI and web API? So UI in terms of SAP, okay, will always, or I can say in most of the cases, will continue to be Fiori. Now that Fiori can be a Fiori element, that Fiori can be a freestyle UI application as well. Irrespective of where you are consuming it, the only catch over here is for any UI application to reach out to the backend service that you are generating, the path should be resolvable by your UI application. And if you are generating OData V2 UI, OData V4 UI, then it will create a service registry entry in the your, I can say in legacy world, in your SICF, the service registry nodes. And then only it will be reachable by your UI application called SAP OPU, OData, and I can say you specify the service name. That's how the node gets created, right? So same way for OData V2 and V4, a node gets created and it will be usable by those set of people. Okay. Now, for example, I'm creating OData V4. The web API is the one which is kind of you may also be interested in creating some API like you used to create, for example, some sort of a settle interface which used to be exposed to the non-SAP world as well. So all those things come under the hood web API. So the same service definition, the same sort of information can be exposed in a different way. The underlying logic will be similar, just the way you are exposing, the way you are creating the service binding instance will differ. Okay, so I'll just create a service binding UI V4 over here. The moment you go next, it will ask you for the transport request and you will be able to finish and the service binding will get generated. And the rest of the things, rest of the, I can say, steps will be similar for you to publish. As you can see, to enable publishing, first you have to activate the service binding. So first you will activate this. The moment you activate, you will start getting a button called publish over here. And the moment you publish, the service will be available in order for you to use it. So for example, I guess the activation will be in process. Let's just wait for a minute. Yeah, here we do have. So now I guess in V4, the publish button's position has changed. So if you just publish over here, the service will be published and your service will have a list of entity set as we had it in the V2 as well. So I guess as you can say, publish operation is in process. So maybe it would take some time like it did for the V2 because that's the first time a service instance will be created on the cloud platform. Okay. So this is how far we were. And now next thing that we are going to do is we will be completing an, I can say, partial end-to-end implementation for this. So agenda for this today's session that we'll keep as a, so we are trying to complete the uh, operations of the read only that we thought of as a part of this session. So our main crust will be that we do have a base, I can say read only service, right? Available. But now, what about the end user? Will I ask him to create a account in the BTP and will I ask him to actually use the Eclipse and install Eclipse and set up everything? No, right? For them, they'll need a Fiori application. So how the Fiori application can be configured, can be created by using this service that we generated. That's what we'll be doing. So that will be an end-to-end scenario. Yeah, one thing we'll park over here is, I can say for later for later purpose. So what will be it? So we'll be having a Fiori launchpad or portal service where we'll be registering this particular application that we are going to generate. That will be that's something that we'll be doing somewhere towards the end of all the sessions, where we'll have the multiple transactional app, read-only application, and everything we'll be deploying at one place. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing later. First, we'll be generating Fiori application by consuming the OData service that we created. Okay, that will be the first one. Another thing will be the VDM architecture. So we are talking about the multiple component of interface view, composite view, consumption view, when to use what and what is the significance of that. That's something we'll be using. Now, going forward, let's just say next, I guess once we are done with read-only application, we are going to proceed with the managed wrap application, which allows us the transactional behavior implementation. So before jumping on to that, it's required to learn the REST API architecture and how the create, update, delete scenario also works. So the basic overview of REST API. So this is something that we'll consider as a part of today's session. If time permits, we would also start jumping on to the architecture of REP application in terms of a transactional behavior. So what all components are involved, how they are correlated, and there is something called service manager, transaction manager, like we used to have it in BOF. So how they are correlated when it comes to RAP, that's something that we are going to learn over here. So as you can see, we do have very nice OData V2 and V4 service ready. Now, as you can see, or as you can observe over here, while you are in the OData V2, the service path will always be SAP OPU OData SAP and then the name of the service. Whereas when you are in the OData
Sumit,
V4,
are you gonna tell us like what's the difference between making an OData V2 and V4 service? Is it like optional? We can create any of them?
so it's like a upgrade of the OData version. Okay, so when we earlier there used to be only OData V2, there was no OData V4. But when it comes to OData V4, multiple Fiori functionalities are now being developed only specific to OData V4 for the first. Second, the way I can say multiple capabilities are driven. So for example, if you just open the service metadata, you will be able to recognize it better. So I'll just show you the service metadata over here. So multiple components. So for example, there are multiple feature controls. Just a sec. Some sort of a UI would also differ when it comes to OData V2 and V4. Okay, so for example, here there is some issue with the filters. It was not able to recognize it due to some reason. Maybe there is some match. Okay, yeah, that was a booking I opened. Sorry. I should be opening the travel. Yeah, I'll come back to your point. Okay, just a second.
No problem.
Okay, so application wise, it looks similar. You won't see much difference over here. But now, when it comes to a service, so let me just open the OData V4 service definition. Here, as you can see, this is the architecture of OData V4 by looking it initially. So as you can see, it is mostly relevant to that of the JSON. Okay. Whereas if I just go over here in my OData V2, the basic skeleton of OData V2 mostly prefer that of the XML. As you can see, these are XML. These are first. Next thing is, while you are trying to search for the path, then where exactly that service is being deployed. So each service need a service instance in the SAP service registry. So OData V2 always gets the path into SAP OPU, OData SAP, and then the service. Whereas the yes, OData V4 always gets the path in SAP OPU, then OData V4 is the OData 4 is a separate node created, and here you will find the name. Now, this particular OData V4 always refer to your service definition as well. So as you can see here, you won't find any trace for your service definition, whereas in OData V4, you will find the trace for which was the service definition using which the service binding was created. So as you can see, this is the trace that you will see over here, which gives you the name of service definition. So this SRVD is the service definition. Moving one more step forward, as you can see, I'll just type metadata over here. So the version is V4 over here, and whereas if I just change this to uh, OData V2, here the service version will be OData V2. So these are V2, these are V4. Now let's just try to check out the differences. Okay. So for example, I would have a travel type entity over here. Same way, I would have a booking type entity over here. Correct. Now, when it comes to navigation, right? So the very first thing, property wise, it will be always similar. But while you are working on a custom UI development, the things that you should be taking care of, or let's just say while you are working on extending some sort of a functionality of a Fiori element based application that you also delivered. These are OData V2. Here you can see that the navigation is always to and the name of the navigation that just got generated. So as I go over here, you will be able to see that this is my OData V2. But whereas if you just go in the OData V4, you will see that association will itself behave as a navigation by just creating a collection on top of it. So as you can see, these are just bookings. The navigation property name will not differ. It will be as it is, as it was earlier. Another thing is all the functionality. For example, when it comes to the visibility part, so in a transactional behavior application, you will see one more component called feature control, right? So in the feature control, you will be able to define whether my field should be editable, whether it should be mandatory, optional, and multiple. What will be the property of that field depending on multiple instances. For example, for one particular type of travel, you want that the cost center number, for example, should be mandatory, or let's just say the amount if increasing by this, then the this field should be mandatory. In other case, it should be optional kind of thing. So those all the things are given by feature control. For that, ideally, a specific AC fields get created over here. Whereas in OData V4, we do have a specific kind of a navigation. So maybe over here you won't be able to find it right now, but there is a specific kind of a capability. So as you can see, these are search capability. Likewise, you will have a field level capabilities as well that will get generated. So in OData V4, everything is broken down in a way that you will get all the capabilities in the form of a separate endpoints. Even though while generating, it will seem like it's a similar one, but in OData V2, everything is contained within the similar metadata. In OData V4, everything is broken down per capability. So that is something we'll be exploring more while we start working on the transactional behavior, because that then it will be more easy to understand for you guys as well. Okay. Makes
Okay.
sense. Okay. So I guess there are plenty of differences, but working, for example, if I generate out of the box application, you won't see any such difference. So for example, I generated both the application just by looking at the UI. you won't be able to figure out which one is working on V2 and which one is working on V4. There won't be much difference. Okay. Okay. Now,
Okay.
oh, yeah. So now next thing. So what we are going to do right now is we are going to deploy the application, or I can say we are going to consume the OData service that we generated, and we are going to create a UI application. So that will be the first end-to-end scenario for the read-only application. So ultimately, our read-only application of rep is something that we can consider as a end-to-end scenario completed, and post which will go in the transactional behavior. So in order for me to create a Fiori application by consuming the service that has been generated. So till now, how we used to do it. For example, I'm in on-premise system, then definitely if you are on an on-premise system, you might need some setup, correct? But if you are on a BTP, for example, like we are on a BTP, then definitely you would have an account on the cockpit. So I'll just open this. Okay. So for example, if I just go over here, you will see that I do have a BTP account from where we actually registered our trial account, our sub account. Okay. And post which we created our ABAP environment instance also from here. Now, when it comes to a UI application development in the on-premise world, what used to happen was we have to create our backend system, or I can say we have to connect our backend system from the cloud connector. So we have to connect the cloud connector, and then we have to create some sort of a destination. Whereas in the cloud world, if you just go over here, you will see that you have one more thing called ABAP on cloud. So there is a ABAP environment instance that you created. The moment you create ABAP environment instance, you will also see that for the very first time you are trying to connect your ABAP environment instance, it will generate a destination automatically. Okay, so the very first time you try connecting it. So now what do I mean by the first time you try connecting it? So when you try connecting it via your UI development tool, now that UI development tool is now going to be strictly as a business application studio. Earlier, it used to be a web IDE as well. Now going forward, SAP is strictly following that. Please ensure you are having a business application studio. That will be the tool going forward. If you don't have the business application studio subscribe, definitely you can go in the service marketplace over here in your relevant sub account and search for the business application studio, and here you will be able to create a instance for that. So as I have already created an instance, I won't be able to create another because each sub account comes with a some set of defined quota. Okay, now what does the quota mean? Quota means that number of instances, number of subscriptions you can opt for. Okay, and that is a some sort of a limitation, and those limitations are mainly termed in the form of, for example, called entitlement. What all things you are entitled to achieve. Okay, so that is something that you would be defining. So for example, when I define a cloud foundry, I can have maximum 4 unit, I can say 4 GB of memory that I can allocate to it. So for example, we created a ABAP environment as well. So it has only one unit that has been assigned on my name. I cannot create more than one unit because in trial account, they are only having one quota assigned. Okay, you won't be able to subscribe for one more ABAP environment instance over here. That is the meaning of entitled. I guess that's based on all the cloud configuration. That's a separate story. But the thing is, once you do have the business application studio available in your now from your service marketplace, you have created a subscription for that. You will be able to see a line over here. You can comfortably click on this and you will be able to navigate to business application studio. So I'll just open this. Okay, and you will be able to click on OK. For the very first time while you are doing this, you won't be having anything like this. You will be having instead a very nice screen like this. This will be your first landing screen, which says that please create a dev space. Okay. So while you are creating a dev space, all you should be ensuring is that in your trial account, I guess the number of dev space it allows is 2, maybe. I guess I'm not sure whether it has been written over here. Earlier they used to write it that you can have only 2 dev space created in your trial account, and only one dev space can be in a running mode at a time when you are in a trial account. In a real account, there is no such limitation. In a trial account, you will get 4 GB of space over here, whereas in a real account, you will get a 10 GB of space. As per what I remember, I guess it's a 10 or 9.8 GB, like 4 is a 3.8 over here, same way. So this is going to be a dev space. So like in Eclipse, we used to have our workspace. Same way in a BAS, Business Application Studio, we'll have our dev space. Now this dev space is again your local dev space. No one other than you will be able to see this. So this is per user. The quota which I am saying 4 GB or 10 GB is also allocated for the amount of files that you can contain over here. For example, I am creating a project and I have defined a project, and going forward, I am pushing it publicly on, let's just GitHub or anywhere. And I don't want any longer to be in my local. I can pull it whenever I want. So I can simply delete it and my space will be saved. Okay, that can be possible. So for example, if I'm willing to create a UI project, my first and foremost step will be I'll be creating a new dev space over here. Now, while I'm creating a new dev space, you can give any comfortable name. For example, a Fiori app for rap. Okay. Here it will have all the default component that it needs. In case you are willing to do any other activity, for example, you want to do some sort of a cap, or let's just say BTP workflow kind of development, you can definitely comfortably add those parameters as well. Otherwise, you can simply go and say create dev space. It would take some time in order for it to get started. Okay, the moment it's starting, you will see a very nice green icon saying over here that okay, it's in running. Now, as you can see here, you can see the warning that you are allowed to only create 2 dev space with only one running at a time. So there is a limitation that is imposed on the trial account. So I guess this is something that you should need, or you will need, in order for you to set up your UI application. Okay. Going forward, I'll also mention, or I can say I'll also tell you that while you are deploying your application, once you do have a very nice UI service providers enrolled for, I can say subscribe for, you will be able to see those applications somewhere over here. So you have multiple options. Either you can go with Cloud Portal or SuccessFactors. These are all the options, but we'll learn that maybe somewhere towards the end. Okay. But if I just go over here, it will be in a running mode very soon. So as you can see, the space is allocated. Now I guess it should start it, I guess, in a minute. Now, I hope many of you are already aware of multiple Fiori applications, but just to make you understand, for example, I do have Fiori application, then what all things are prerequisite for a developing a Fiori application. First thing for developing a Fiori application is a backend service. So we do have a backend service. We do have a backend service which is generated on RAP. Another thing on the developer tool, or I can say SDK, we want backend system connected. So in this case, my backend system is a BTP, which is nothing but my ABAP on cloud. Okay. So this system should be connected SDK. So backend system should be connected on the UI SDK. That's a prerequisite. Another thing. So I can say these are the prerequisite, but for what? For development. Now there are another prerequisite for deployment. So whenever I am creating a Fiori application, it gets deployed. Okay, but it's not like a service that when you are deploying it, when you are publishing a service, it will get the space there and then. When a UI application is getting deployed, it is getting deployed in the form of some sort of a BSP application. So BSP application is something you can think of a compressed form of an application, uh, which is containing its all the information. So how a UI is designed? A UI is a combination of some sort of a view, controller, it's all the dependencies that it needs and multiple things. Its relevant packages, the I can say relevant if it's consuming something from world outside, for example, the backend service, the path for backend service, the way of authentication, and all those stuffs are contained. So this all the stuffs are compressed and contained in a BSP application, which is ultimately stored in a, I can say, package. So for example, the package that we are creating over here, the package that we do have over here, for example, ZURFPW, the same package we can use in order for us to store that BSP. Okay. Another thing is, while we are storing something into the package, what we'll need is a transport request. Okay, these are the things that you will need for deployment. And another thing that you will need for execution. So for example, we are talking of the Fiori Launchpad configuration. So when we are talking about Fiori Launchpad configuration, it needs a unique identity with the help of which your deployed application can be navigated to. So for example, I do have a travel application which I am creating. Then I can have multiple travel applications on my dashboard, right? I can have a travel app, for example, which is a read-only one, which I might be using for some sort of a displaying purpose. I might have a travel app, which is just showing the statistics of the expense I am having on my name. So I can have some sort of a dashboard, which is also some sort of a analytics. I can say some sort of analytical activity I can think of. I can have some sort of a travel app, which is allowing me to create the travel. So where I'll be able to manage my travel likewise. So I can have multiple such applications. So in order for me to identify any application uniquely, there are two components which are required: semantic object and the action. So for example, if I'm naming my travel app as a travel app, then this can be my semantic object. So there can be a common semantic object with a different actions on my launchpad. The moment someone clicks on the tile that I do have on my launchpad, for example, someone clicks on my tile will have the information of which particular semantic object and action this tile is associated with. It will link this particular semantic object, and this semantic object and action combination will internally be linked to the BSP application, which will ultimately help me load the application that has been developed. So these are the things that should be there. If I start from the first thing should be that my backend service should be connected to my business application studio. So if I just go over here, I can see that my business application studio dev space is up and running. I can simply click on this. And then maybe next thing that maybe we can see practically into the system. Okay, so these are very nice and tidy business application studio, our developer tool, which helps us do multiple kind of development. For now, it's not enabled for any ABAP relevant development, only for Fiori or let's just say some low code, no code application or a CAP based applications. These are the things that it supports. Now, there are multiple ways of starting for application creation. I can either go with start from template, or here I can also go from new project from template. Okay, I'll just go from here. I'll just say start creating a project from template. Here I am interested in creating a Fiori application. I'll just select this, go next. Now, what do you want to create? So maybe I guess this was a ask, maybe I'm not sure, from Meghna, I guess, who is a UI. Okay, that whether we can create any worklist application. Yeah, you can create anything. You can connect any OData service to any of the possible application, be it a for freestyle or a work list or anything. For now, we are going with the list report. Okay. I'll just go next over here. And here you should be choosing the data source. So the first and foremost thing that we thought of was that first my backend service should be connected. So how I can connect to my backend service, that will be the first task. We'll go step by step. So if I just go over here, you will be able to see that I have to connect to my system. Another thing is whether you do have a direct endpoint for a OData service, you can do that. If there is a web API, someone has already exposed in the standard SAP API Hub, you can use that. Or if you do have XML document for a metadata like we had over here, if you can save it, you can also use it, but it will be static. You can have a local cap project that you can also consume. I'll just connect to a system. Now here you will see an option. So you will always choose the ABAP environment for SAP Business Technology Platform. This will be there by default on your drop down if you have configured the ABAP environment. I'll just click on this. Now, as you can see, there is an error. What it says that for you to discover any ABAP environment, please ensure that you are logged in with your Cloud Foundry. Okay, so you have to log into your Cloud Foundry. If you're not clear how you can do that, you can always go ahead and check this wiki. I'll just make this step very simple. All you have to do is you have to go over here and just in the menu bar, you can see a terminal. The business application studio is quite versatile and is having very nice terminal window, which allows you to perform multiple steps on a command line. You can just go and say new terminal. So here there are multiple repositories. You can log in at any point, but my personal best practice that I follow is I am going to create a project. So if you just write ls, you will see that it has node modules, projects, PMP. So possibly, if possible, go to projects and then do all the activities because you will be on the live working directory. Okay. Now, if I want to log into my, I can say Cloud Foundry. So Cloud Foundry is having a command line called CF. So if you just enter, you will see all the possible commands you can enter. Okay. The one which we are interested in is we want to log in. So maybe I'm not sure whether it's visible over here. CF. Okay, no worries. So all you have to do is you have to say CF login, and there are multiple ways. If you just log in, it will ask you for a user ID and password and the API endpoint. Instead, if I want to be more smart and more quick, you can simply say single sign-on CF login --SSO. As you can see, it is asking you for API endpoint. What is the endpoint that you are trying to connect? So if I just go over here in my overview of my BTP account, I'll see that I would have an API endpoint. I'll just right click on this and I'll just say copy the link. Paste it over here and you will just say enter. As you can see, it just says that temporary authentication code can be found on this. Just say control click on this and you will be able to open this in a new URL, which gives a kind of a OTP, single sign-on. So as you can see here, you do have a very nice temporary authentication code. Just click on this button, which is a copy, go back and just paste it over here and just say enter. It won't be visible while you are pasting because it's a passcode. But as you can see, now you are logged in onto this. Now, if that's done, then what we can expect it that we should be able to perform this activity, just go one step back. Or if you want, you can also close this and restart the whole activity again. Okay, I'll just select list report page. I'll just go next. I'm interested in connecting to the system. And it remember the earlier selection I made. And now, as you can see, I did not get any error. So I'll just go over here. And as you can see, I'm getting the name of the ABAP environment I configured, which is ABAP on cloud. This is coming from my BTP. So as you can see, this is the name of my ABAP environment I have already configured. Okay, this is ABAP environment. For you, whatever name you would have given, you will get the same name. Now, next step will be that we should be able to see all the services that it is having. So whatever services are there into the system, doesn't matter whether you created it or like we were discussing earlier, there is a shared public cloud. So this shared instance will have n number of services deployed on as a part of it, and you will be able to see each and every of them. It might take some time. Let's wait. Okay, so as you can see, it is loading a very nice service drop down, which is having a list of service. So for us, what will be the service that we do have? So we do have ZUI travel service. Okay, so if I just go over here, if you just click on the drop down, you should be able to see multiple service. Let me just start selecting ZUI travels. We can see both the service. Let's just start with this OData. Okay, next thing you can go ahead with over here. Now here you should be selecting your main entity. Now what is the main entity? Entity is the one that or using which your whole application, the main application will be running. So my application is rotating around travel. I'll just say travel. Does it have any sort of a navigation page, or I can say navigation? Yeah, I'll just say yes, it is navigating to bookings. I'll just go next. Here you will be able to give the information of a project. So there is a wizard based interface which allows you creating all the stuff. So I'll just say EO underscore travel, for example. I'll just say my travels. Okay, and it will create a project in the projects folder over here. And there is a latest version it is picking. If you want, you can choose any version. Okay, so there is a most stable version which is released till now. You have to add deployment version, add the Fiori Launchpad configuration. So as I mentioned, for you to do the application to you to make the application available on Launchpad, you have to make the deployment information. And for execution, you will need the Fiori Launchpad configuration as well. Okay. So I'll just go over here. As you can see, it is asking me for both the things. I'll just go next. So it is choosing that my application will be deployed on this. So as you can see, it is picking the destination it created by default. I'm trying to deploy it on my platform. Okay. Next thing is that you have to specify, as you can see, SAP UFI ABAP repository. Enter the name of deployed application. The name must follow the rule of creating BSP application. Okay. And its namespace is compatible with the selected package. Now, what selected package it means that we have to enter a name of the package, as I mentioned over here. So if you just go over here, you will open the favorite package and you will be able to see that I do have this package. I'll just copy the name and you will be able to paste it over here. It will validate it. Second, when you are entering the ABAP repository name, the BSP name, as you know, I am doing a custom development. It means the name of BSP application can only start with Z or Y. It cannot be anything open. Otherwise, you won't have the authorization to actually generate such a standard object, correct? So what you will do is you will just say ZEO travel BSP, for example. Here you can say BSP for my travel. Okay, then you have to enter the transport request on which you want to store this particular BSP. So maybe you can double click on this package. And we should be able to see some sort of information of package. I'll just right click over here. Okay, I'll just say I'll go over here and I'll just right click over here as well. That's totally fine. Either of the places you can get the information. You can say you want to see the revision history. Here you can see the information of a travel, information of the transport. So I'll just right click and I'll just say copy. I'll just say copy request number. And here I'll go and I'll just enter the transport request number. System will only allow you to enter it manually. If you just go over here and see, it says choose from existing, but currently BAS trial does not have that capability to pop you up with the all the travel requests, all the transport requests which are available in your system. So I'll just go next. Another thing I just mentioned was the portion on the execution side, so that your application is being recognized uniquely. Okay, so here, as you can see, the semantic object is something that you should be specifying. So I'll just say travel you, and here you have to define the action. So for example, I want to have a display only application. So this action can be anything. I can add any name because action can be specific to your organization. So many times you might want to say restricted display, or let's just say user specific display, anything. Okay. Action can be anything. Just this combination will be your actual endpoint, the name of semantic object dash your action. That's the only purpose. I'll just say display, or I can simply say my travels. If you want, you can give a subtitle. So this will become a subtitle of your tile going forward. So that's an optional. I'll just say finish. I won't add any subtitle, and they should generate a project. Okay. It's installing some dependencies. If you just go over here, you will see that, okay, I am currently don't have anything. The moment project gets generated, you will get a bit of pop-up. Or if you want, you can also navigate to a relevant folder. So you can just go over here, new, and you can say open folder. And for example, my home has a user and my user has a project on which all this particular thing will be there. I think I broke something in between while navigating. Let's see. Um, I think I was a bit quick. So your project was in generation. Ideally, you should not be navigating directly. There should be a file called UI deploy, which just got missed because I navigated. Just like, let's see if it gets generated. Otherwise, we have to regenerate the project. I mean, it was installing some dependency. That's why let's see. I can preview the application for sure. If it has the dependencies installed. As you can see, the path of this EO travel dash tile. So these for the tile. And as you can see, the application just got generated and I'm able to see it on my business application studio. And this is how your application will be displayed going forward. Be it anything, you will be able to see all those informations. Let's see if we do have a full project generated, because I guess it just missed something. Maybe we might need to regenerate the project. I mean, during the time I just shifted the folder, maybe it just was installing some dependencies. So one of the file which I'm missing over here is a UFI deploy. So as I mentioned, right, the transport request, the BSP name that we added is supposed to be there in one of the file called UFI deploy. So there is one more UFI YAML file, which is responsible for getting all those dependencies information. Okay, let's just do one thing. Okay, let's just do one thing. Quickly create a project. Okay, I'll add this both. Okay, it should only be 15 characters. I'll just reduce it by 1. Let me just copy the package. Compare with, and you can see the revision history over here. Like you used to see the transport request, I'll just copy the request number from here and paste it. Next, I'll just say your travel. Okay, let me just finish this. As you can see, during the finishing, it's installing some dependencies. So this is the dependencies I was talking about. The moment dependencies are installed, you will get a message saying that your project is ready to use and all the dependencies are installed. So in case you change the folder in between, that the browser is getting refresh. During the refresh, it will stop. Yeah, as you can see, the project has been generated. Now, if I just go over here, here you can see the UFI deploy. So this is responsible for your application's deployment. So this is something that you will see missing over here. And here you can see the UFI deploy is having the information that we just entered. The BSP path, the description of it, the package, and the transport request into which it should be deployed. Okay. Now, if you want to view this, you can simply say preview the application and you will be able to run this application over here. As we had, I guess, another application already running, it just took the another port. I'll just close this. The first one because we don't need it. The another one is getting open over here. As you can see, we do have a application up and running over here, which is connecting my backend service. Okay. So now, next thing is how you can make this service available. So what we just completed over here is we are able to connect to the backend system. We are able to uh, I can say provide the BSP application and everything. We provided the Fiori configuration detail. Now we have to deploy it. So for deployment, whatever parameter it needs, we have already specified those. Now to deploy it, the path, the ask is very straightforward. First, your application should have the minimal file called UEFI deploy.yaml, which contains all the information, okay, on which destination it should get deployed and all the stuff. As you can see, it is going to deploy it on the cloud platform. Now, in order for you to deploy it, you have to just perform one simple step. You have to say npm run deploy. System will start doing the deployment. At first, it will generate some archive file. So the moment I just say Y, you will see an archive file, zip file getting generated, which will be part of your BSP going forward, and it will get auto deleted from your package. So as you can see, just keep observing this. Archive.zip got generated, which is responsible for your package. What is the issue over here? you will be able to see any errors, those get generated. Now, for example, in today's state, what it is saying, many a time on the cloud, I guess due to the connection as well, this gets failed. So I guess maybe we can retry, that's not an issue, but it just due to what? That's something that we have to identify. Let's just validate a couple of things. This 14037, is it a proper task? The package name seems to be correct. Okay, let's just go over here and see the transport number, because that's what I suspect can be a issue. So for example, if I just start creating a new class, for example, a random one. Okay, that's 914036. And here we provide 037 because the one which we got was the task number, right? So that can be one of the issue because the BSP name we provided is correct. So I'll just change the transport request number, which is 91414036. I'll just cancel this. So these are the parameter which should ultimately be correct. First, the BSP application should get uploaded to this. So if I just go over here, I'll just say refresh to see what is the 25 package. Now it just got generated with T8 because I created two yesterday. I guess it's generating, but it's not yet complete. That's what I can see. Okay, I'll just go over here and again change it. So for example, npm run deploy. Now, as you can see, it is able to deploy. So yeah, ultimately I should be providing a transport number over here and not the task number. And as we provided the task number, it was not able to log the information it should be able to. And that's why, as you can see now, as we provided transport number, the BSP name, the ZEO My Travel BSP. So now if I just go and refresh this, you can see that, okay, it just got generated and it should have. Okay, so your BSP won't be able, system won't be able to open this BSP from here. Another thing that will also get generated will be this Fiori UI interface. Okay, so these are the things that gets generated, which will be relevant to your BSP. Now, as you can see, it just got deployed. Now it is giving me the path for that. So if I just control click on this, it will open this. Ideally, it takes some time in order for it to start reflecting. That's not an issue. Okay, let's just wait for a few minutes and then maybe we'll just retry, because while you are uploading this particular path will take some time in order for it to start reflecting on the UI. Okay, so these are the steps. Maybe the app should be available in a minute or two. That's not an issue. It's not giving me the proper path over here. Ideally, it should be in text. HTML. It will be some open like something like this. Okay, but I guess we'll wait for a minute. Then I guess this application should start running. Now, for you to do all this activity, what all things are required? first you should have the required authorization. So in case you are in the BTP, all you should be knowing is that you do have a users. Now in the users layer, there are a couple of things that you should be authorized for. So in the BTP sub account, if you just open this, you should be able to see a couple of things. In your role collection, right? So these are the business application studio administrator, developer, and the extension deployer. This will allow you to deploy anything. If you don't have any of this authorization, if you're missing onto this, then you will not be able to. You'll be able to assign role collection from here, and you will be able to see all those stuff over here. So these are the authorization which I can still intake, but I have not. I guess we are not required to have this authorization for the activity that we need. For the minimum authorization that you will need is a business application studio relevant authorization that you would need on your ID for you to work on this all this activity. Okay. Any questions till now by any one of you? Going forward, we'll be able to map this to the Fiori Launchpad. So the BSP path, the BSP application that just got generated and which is available on this particular path, we should be able to use this and we should be able to open this, I guess, in a Fiori Launchpad. So the tile configuration and everything should be, we'll be considering it somewhere towards the end of the sessions, end of all the sessions, I can say. Make sense? Yes, no? Is it clear? Okay, I'll take it as a yes. Thanks. Okay. So now, next thing that we should be knowing over here is, I'll just go over here and we'll start learning one more thing called VDM architecture. Seems someone is trying to say something. Meghna, any doubts? Any questions?
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you are.
Can you show that web app folder at BTP
Yeah,
where the
sure.
files are generated?
So it's your normal Fiori element application. So if you just go in web app, you will see the path for your Fiori application. In the manifest, you will see the path SAP OP data, the name of the service, and it will take the annotations and everything. Okay, and the path that we specified for the, I can say application's normal pages. So this is the page from where your list report will get loaded, and it will have a page for the object page from where your travel in, I can say booking information will be loaded, two bookings. Okay, and the annotation will be an empty one. Here, if you want, you can enrich the annotations with the local UI annotations as well.
Okay.
So it's normal, like you used to, maybe you would be using WebID full stack, right, for your development.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be this on same line. Just WebID full stack does not generate annotation files by default. Here you will get that file by default.
Okay. So we can use the custom development from here also.
Yeah. So going forward, WebID is not going to get any new upgrade. All the development will be going through the Business Application Studio only.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'll just go back and try to see if this is there. Close this. I'll just copy this link. I guess it seems that it is navigating me to somewhere else. I guess it's still taking some time in order for it to get refreshed. No worries. So I guess this is how it will be displayed. So ultimately, this is one of the more BSP I deployed, I guess, right? So these are the same BSP deployed on the same one, and these are the two things it will generate: BSP application and this, and maybe I guess it should be available very soon. Now, another thing that we are interested in is from the rep perspective. So we are going to generate couple of views. I can say multiple views. So each view should have a set of data model incorporated. Okay. In SAP, we do have a concept of VDM called virtual data model. So you would be seeing that I'm following certain conventions while I'm generating certain views. So what is it? So any set of CDS views or any set of data model that you are generating needs a uh, semantic, or I can say it needs a meaning, like what is the purpose of that view. So in VDM world, there can be multiple kind of views. There are two kind of views in a broader manner: interface views. Another one is a consumption view. Okay, so when we are saying that these are the type of views, you will give this information on your application by specifying an annotation called VDM.view type. So if I just go over here in your view, the expectation will be that you ideally specify. Here we are just following the convention. We have not enriched it with the relevant annotation, but ideally you should be specifying that this is my VDM dot view type, and here you should be specifying your for example, if it's consumption, you should be specifying that yeah, there is a consumption view. Okay, yeah, so I guess maybe they have not released it in the tier, but the convention wise, this is how you will be able to see the views. But now, when it comes to this VDM type, maybe explicitly without implicitly maybe without saying, the system is identifying the type of this view. Whereas in your, if you are on-premise, so there is a difference, a minor difference you will see when you are on your on-premise. So maybe if you are having your SAP system working on anything greater than 2020 release, you will be able to do the RAP-based development as well. Okay. And at that time, while you are doing RAP-based development, you are required to specify all this VDM annotation. Currently, we are on cloud, and on cloud version, it seems that SAP is restricting us specifying all those VDM annotation. But the convention is something that will still follow. So if you try searching for any view into the system, you will see the same set of I can say annotations and same set of convention being followed over there. So there are two kind of views in that direction: interface view and consumption view. So what is the purpose of that? Interface views are broadly again segregated in two kind of view called basic views, and another one I can call it as a composite view. So while you are creating any view, there can be multiple situations. So for example, you are creating a view to get the data directly from travel. You are creating a view to directly get the data from currency code master. You may be creating some view to directly get the data of material short text, or I can say material text. So it means there can be multiple information which can be coming from either a transactional table, or let's just say a master data table. Okay, or I can say combination of both. But the purpose of this view will be to behave as a reusable component. So in the world of RAP, in the world of CDS, it's always suggestible to not use the tables directly in your underlying application consumption view. Instead, build a interface view which will create an interface for you to access those tables via the view and not via the table. Why is that? So because if you see all your Fiori application, okay, Fiori application, if you would have heard, it's following one approach called role-based approach, right? That on the particular person who is having a specific role will only be able to access that application. So this will be applicable while you are making the tile visible or hidden. But how about the data security? Okay, so the data security can be applied and on a view layer by specifying certain access control mechanism. If you see over here, we are specifying @access control authorization check. Here we have specified it as a not required. But the moment you specify that I would need a privileged user only to use my view, at that point in time, you are required to specify one access control view over here. Okay, and that particular access control view will help that For example, I do have a booking. Currently, anyone is able to view anyone's data. Okay. But the moment you specify it as a required, and if you specify DCL, I can say access control view on this case. So for example, if I just try showing this over here, I'll just go over here and I'll just say run as a web application. Okay, you will see that, okay, I am able to see all the data. But consider I want to secure this data even better. Okay, then can I do something at the table layer while selecting the data? All I can do is while selecting the data, I might put a where clause. Okay, but many times those access control mechanism may not be that straightforward. Right? Those access control mechanism can be user based, or it can also be let's just say fixed value, or I can say in terms of a DCL, it is called literal based, or it can be a role based as well, where you are creating a separate PFCG role, and in the role you are defining that this is the person who is having authorization for this and this company code, this and this country, this and this plants. Likewise, any business entities you can define. So all those information will be very complex while you are defining those over here. Specifically, role-based information is something that you can never use in the filter. For example, I am willing to create a access control on this. So I'll just go over here and I'll just create one more access control view. I'll just say core data service here. As you can see, access control. I'll just go over here, just define it. Ideally, you should be specifying the same name as that of the base view. So it will be easy for you to correlate. But yeah, a single view can have n number of access control views defined on it. So I can say access control for booking. And just go next over here. And you will go next, and you can see that there are multiple options. I'll just simply say define role with simple condition. I'll just say finish. Okay, so here, as you can see, I do have a view which is saying that I am willing to define a role for this by granting the select privilege on the particular view. Now, which particular view you want to grant the select privilege? For example, I am willing to have it on this particular view. That on this view, please grant the select privilege only when. So for example, I am showing you the data. I am seeing that I want to have only the information where my customer is this. And the customer value is, I guess, customer ID. That's what it is denoted to. So I'll just say customer ID. Okay. Or you can also say that, or the particular customer is me. I am having my ID same as that of the customer ID. That's a user based role. So this the fixed value that you are providing is a literal base one. Sorry, we can have the, as I mentioned, like the interface views ultimately helps us providing this value. So ultimately you will be you have to provide this on a view which is one layer above. I'll just go over here, see booking. I'll just go over here, change this. For example, this. Okay. So here at this layer, the data will be secured. So from this layer where you are selecting the data, you will be able to filter it out, saying that you want only the data which is having a customer ID equal to this. Now, if I just activate this, you will be seeing that I have not specified any data selection on that particular view. For example, if I just go over here in the data definition, my iBooking over here, I have not specified any specific data booking. If I just go over here and execute this, as you can see, I am able to see only the data which is specific to that customer. But did I specify any of the select condition, where condition which says what data should be filtered out? No, right? It was saying not required. If you say not allowed, then it would be ignored. Okay, but if you just say that not required, it means if it is there, then it will be considered. For example, if I am saying not allowed, I'll just activate this. Go back, refresh. As you can see, even though I do have a DCL in place, secure access security control, still the data will be flowing to the output because I am saying not allowed. If you say not required, then it will see if there is any, it will consider, but it's not hard and fast for the system to have a access control view. Okay, so this is how the DCL would work. Now, what we from where we actually started this discussion, that we just consider the one where literal base access control is into picture. There can be user base. There can be role base as well. For example, a person is a field person. Then he would only be able to see the data of his relevant plant. But for example, a person is a head of a department. Then all the plants which are coming under his department, he should be able to see the data of all of them. If a person is a CEO, he should be able to see all the data across the organization. So depending on the role, the amount of data security that can be applied should be changing. Okay, so if I am doing directly a select query or a projection on my database table, will I be able to apply this sort of access control? No, right? Because my final layer will be consumption view, which is a projection view over here, in this case, RAP. And in the projection view, I cannot apply any access control. So where I can apply it? You can apply it on the transactional processing layer, which is nothing but one layer, which is RAP is involving. So in your normal VDM, where you are having a set of CDS views defined, you will see that you will have a interface view and the consumption view. In case of a VDM, in case of a RAP, in case of RAP, you will see a specific layer called TP layer, called transactional processing layer. And here all this particular access control will be defined because interface views are reusable. So if I apply any access control which are specific to this application, it will not be logical. And that's the reason all the access control will be applied on a transactional processing layer on which you can apply any access control you want. And ultimately, the data that you will be finding flowing on your application will be only the relevant one, which based on the user who is accessing it. That is the meaning of a transactional processing layer over here. Now, coming back to the point, interface view. So only ask is that we should not be allowing any person to directly use the database table first. Second, if there are any business wise correlated data, then those should be exposed as a combined data. For example, I should not be always saying EKKO and EKPO. I know EKKO is a PO header data and EKPO is a PO item data. But for me who is creating a PO application, and for the user, there is nothing called header and item data. They are all their all information is rotating around purchase order information. That's all. So it means before you even start exposing any information by combining this data, that should all be done at the interface layer. All your tables should be converted into a view, and those views should be consumed over here at the consumption layer. So what all things can go in interface view? Interface views can have two types. Basic view can contain a direct access, or I can say can contain a direct query on DB table. It can be mostly a specific type. So for example, if I'm creating a table, creating a view for a material text, the number of tables should be limited. It should be mostly 1 to up to 3. Okay. Another one is a composite view. Composite view, as the name says, it is the composition of multiple views. So it can get the data from multiple base view. And in some cases, from DB table if required. So if you are not finding any basic view already created, and if you want to have a data being derived from a database table, it's allowed. You can still do that, but it's not a best practice. Now the convention of a view name. So for all the interface view, be it a basic view or composite view, it should start with a I underscore. In the standard one, it should start with I underscore. In your case, it can be ZI underscore, depending on your organization's convention, or it can be Z, for example, your business process. So for example, if you're creating it for MM, you should say ZMMI underscore. So to denote that this is an interface view. Now, there can be a consumption view which says that, okay, these are the view which you will be using for the for the consumption purpose, for the application consumption. And those naming convention will start with C underscore. In your custom development, it should start with ZC underscore or ZMM underscore C underscore. In case of a wrap, there is one more layer which is being introduced, which is called a transactional processing. So at this point in time, all the view will be, all this particular interface composite view will be combined, and mostly consumption view will be in line, or I can say very much I can say in line with that of the consumption view. And those view should have their name starting with something called R underscore. So this R layer, purpose of it is to behave as a placeholder for all the transactional capabilities. So all the behaviors that will get created, right? All the behavior definition and everything will be done on this R layer. So maybe I'm not sure whether in this cloud they have provided that, but if I just go over here and I try searching for some, saying R underscore, for example, sales order. Uh, let's see if we can. So these are the packages that you have provided, but no, we cannot see anything at least now. So if we start searching for anything which is already there in the release package, we should have the core data service. Core data service has a behavior definition. Okay, so this is the one which is a custom developed. Someone has done it for their own set of development, but in this cloud released version, maybe we are not able to see. And the name is also per person. That person is defined it as per his convention. But ideally, the behavior you will be able to see will be starting from something called R underscore. R is mainly for transactional processing. So there are two layers, R underscore, and one is called C underscore. So what is the purpose? So I'll just show you one more important thing over here. Uh, uh, uh. Hmm. Okay. So maybe you would recall this, right? We had this discussion that we can create multiple application with service definition and binding. Here, as you can see, we generated the business object. At this point in time, we have something called behavior definition. And here we have behavior projection. In the data modeling level, we do have a CDS data modeling. And here we do have a CDS projection. So maybe now you will be able to correlate what it is. So if I just go one more step ahead, over here in this architecture. As you can see, I can have a database tables which will be consumed in a CDS views and which will have a projection. But now, as you can see, the CDS definition that we are, the behavior definition that we are going to implement, add a behavior, will be done on this data model. So this data model will be nothing but your R view, which is something that we are enriching with the transactional processing capability. Now, by meaning of transactional processing capability, I mean you can enrich it with the create, update, delete, or let's just say some sort of a validation, anything, any sort of the such behavior you are enriching it with is called a behavior. And that will be done on your R layer, which is specific to RAP. It was not there earlier RAP in the CDS layer. That concept was not there. Now, for example, I am enriching this, but I want to create 3 application out of the behavior I am defining. So this R view can also be made reusable, and you can create a projection that I am saying that for a travel, I want to have a capability of create, update, and delete. But I want to have a 2 separate kind of people. Okay, I want to have a 2 separate kind of people. So my travel, I want to have a capability of someone would be able to create the travel, someone would be able to delete, create, update and delete. So I have a specific R view on which I am enriching all these behaviors. But I have two set of users. One user should be able is called, let's just say, manager. He is able to do anything. He is able to create the travel, update the travel, and delete the travel. I do have another set of person who is only allowed to do the activity of updation of the particular travel. He should not be able to create any new travel, and he should not be able to delete any new travel. When I say I have created the travel as a manager, then I can say travel agent should only be able to, I can say, update the information of the relevant customer. That's the only ask. So the behavior that we have created, which is having the capability of both, based on the requirement, I can create multiple C behavior. I can say consuming behaviors, or and in terms of RAP, it is called behavior projection. You can project this behavior in a multiple way in order for you to identify and define what all capabilities you want to give to the application user. Okay, and that is the meaning of a behavior projection. And that's why we do have a definition and projection, like we do have a data model and projection. What all fields you want to expose, you can project those. Out of 100%, you want to expose only 30%. Same way, out of all the capabilities you have defined, what all capabilities you want to pass on to the upcoming layer. That is the meaning of projection. Now, in order for you to achieve that, in a RAP world, we do have a transactional processing layer, which will be containing all the transactional processing capability. Okay, out of which what all thing you want to expose will be denoted by your consumption view in your RAP, which will be a projection view internally. Same way, on this projection view, you will have a C underscore behavior, which will be nothing but your behavior projection in this case. So any standard application, if you are observing, maybe if you do have any latest SAP on-premise system, maybe if you are trying to explore that, because in the trial version, as we can see, the RAP releases are not available, because we just checked that. Because if you do have a behavior now, you will be able to see those in the release object over here, and you should be able to see those in the behavior definition. So for example, if I just go inside local, I'm not sure like what all things are provided over here. You should be able to see a node called core data service. In the core data service, you will see something called data definition, which are the views. And other thing you will be able to see will be the behavior definition, which are the behaviors, which are the specific rep, specific object you will be able to see over there. Okay, so now coming back to the VDM, you can have interface and basic composite view for the reusable purpose in order for you to properly apply any sort of security mechanism and virtually define the architecture of your data model. What is the parent, what is the child, how the multiple informations are correlated. And while you're exposing in RAP, you can have this particular interface views being consumed in a transactional processing, which will enrich them with the capabilities. And finally, consumption view will define the application specific capability that you want to project to the particular OData service. So this is how the VDM architecture is defining the scope of any application. And this is something that we'll be using going forward in all the development that we are going to perform. Okay, so for example, here they are having only packages. So I guess by looking at the package, it won't be easy for us to identify, but these are all the custom created that each and every user has created their own set of packages. Okay. Any doubts, any questions? Let's just feel free to discuss. Josefa, is it in line with what you were expecting in the VDM?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, so this is the one for the VDM architecture, and going forward is something that we are going to use. Now, next thing that we are going to do is we are going to learn one more last thing, maybe as a part of this session, because I guess we had a request that maybe few people are having a working day today. So I guess let's just keep the session as 10:30. That's what I got an update from maybe some of you guys. And another thing will be, I guess we'll have, I guess, a session on the last Sunday as well. So maybe it would go till maybe 11 session or not 10 sessions. So I guess those half an hour maybe we can accommodate over there. So that's not an issue. So now, so these are the terminology that we use. This is how we'll be able to use it. Now, couple of things that we want to understand today is the REST API architecture first in terms of a create, update, and delete. And if time permits, we'll also be going through this manage BO runtime implementation, what all things it can contain. Okay. Now, if I just go and run a simple thing over here. Okay, I guess it's taking time for the page to at least open. It's a bit weird. Okay, let's just start over here then. Okay, so we are talking about the REST API architecture. So REST API architecture, it says about a RESTful, it's main about it's rotating around the resources. Okay, so REST API architecture is providing us all the basic capability which ideally any HTTP protocol will provide. For example, I can create some entries by triggering a post call. I can update some entry by triggering a put call. I can delete some entry by triggering a delete call. The basic one, which are being provided out of the box by any CDS view, is get. And by this get query, we mean a read operation and the query operation. So I guess you would have observed that
Get entity and get entity set.
yeah, that's how it was called in the legacy, exactly, correct. So in the SEGW, we used to have a dedicated method for that. Okay, but in this particular case, I can say, yeah, in this particular case, those informations are provided out of the box. Are we implementing any get entity or get entity set over here? No, it's working out of the box. So for example, if I say that I want to see the data which is coming on a particular, let's just say 23rd of September over here, and I'll just say 15th of September, I want to see what all data are there. I'll just say right click over here, inspect, for you guys to actually see what is going on in the background. If I just go in network tab, I'll just say okay over here. The moment you say go.
I think your screen is stuck. Or is it just stuck for me? Amit? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are audible actually. I cannot.
Hello.
I can hear you now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
your
actually, there is some power.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, hello.
yeah, but your
Yeah,
screen
now
is
Yeah,
audible.
yeah. Actually, there is some power outage, so I just connected via my mobile net. That's the reason. Okay, just a sec. Can you still see the screen?
no,
No.
Sumit.
Okay, let me
But
just reshare. Yeah,
okay.
please.
I was just feeling that all these things that you have taught are pretty, all the steps of pretty complicated. So I guess we can stop
This
now rather than going to REST API.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'll see if this particular read and query which is working. I guess if you are able to understand, I guess second, if you are able to see the screen properly, post that the create, update, and delete. Okay, those are the scenario that we'll be learning along with the manage view. Don't worry. Okay, that's the only purpose I had. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible now. Is
No,
it
Sumit, it's not.
not? Okay.
Yeah, it's visible for me.
Okay. Meghna, Joseph, are you able to see the screen
Yeah,
now?
yeah, visible. Yeah, read query is
Okay.
there batch.
Okay, no worries. So as you can see, if I just go over here, you will be able to see that I am triggering a query on my travel entity. And here I would have a URI prepared, which says that question mark dollar filter. And how many data it is returning? It is returning 583, which is more than one. So it means I'm trying to trigger a HTTP GET call using which I am getting a response of 583 result record. It means it's a query. So what is a query? So in HTTP term, a GET call which returns 0 or n number of records is called a query. So there is a result set. So any result set which can respond me with, let's just say 0 or n number of record is called a query. Another one will be, for example, I am going over here again back to my screen. If I try opening this particular first line here, as you can see, the moment I click on this in the payload, you will see that I am passing a key parameter, right? Travel is having a primary key of it, which is a travel ID 12, which is being passed. And here I am able to see one more parameter. Okay, and that's why it is called a read. So what is a read? So read will always expect one output record in the result set. So any HTTP GET operation which returns you one record, it's called a read call. Any HTTP call which returns you 0 to n number of records. So for example, I luckily enter the query parameter which was having a valid date. But for example, I try selecting the data on a date, for example, today's date. 5th of Feb, for example, I'll just say, okay, I'll just go over here and I am not getting any record. So even though I am having a 0 record over here, even though I am having a 0 record in my output over here, it is still a success call. As you can see, if I just close this out, you will see that, okay, there is a success call 200. So in the HTTP response, anything that you are seeing in the form of a 200, 201, 202 are success. Anything in 300 is also a kind of success while getting the CSRF token. Maybe the data was not written. In case of 400 or 500, you can think as it's a fail call. Okay. So it means we are able to derive the data by passing the parameter. So in case of a read call, what you can expect as an input will be your key parameter. So while you are passing the key parameters as a data, as an input parameter, then you will expect that you will only get one record, and that is called as a read call. In legacy, or I can say in SCGW, there used to be a get entity method that used to get triggered in this case. In case of a query, you can see that you will always get 0 to n number of record. And here to get the data, you can have filter parameters that you can pass as an optional. So filter parameters you can pass, and that too as an optional. If you want all data, you can avoid filter parameters as well. It will only contain the name of entity set. And this is in legacy, it was implemented in a get entity set. Here in CDS, it will work out of the box. Okay. Next, we'll have a post, put, and delete. This will come into picture while you are having a managed or unmanaged BO. I can say transactional behavior implemented. At that point in time, definitely we'll also have some sort of a parameter. So we'll just talk about the parameter, but we won't be able to perform those transactional behavior in detail. Maybe we'll have it as a part of next session when we actually create our own first business, I can say, behavior definition. So I'll just say result set input, what all things we can have input in a, I can say URI layer, and which is a universal resource identifier. I can say unique resource identifier. Another one will have an input as a body parameter. So if you are trying to create a particular, for example, new travel entry, will you be inserting a, I can say, key parameter as an input? No. You will pass the information of like the start date, end date, and all the body parameters. So I can say this body parameter will be required in this case, but whereas the key parameter will be empty. So in your URI, you cannot pass no key parameters, only entity set name. Only entity set name will be there. Whereas if I just consider okay, whereas if you see in case of a put parameter where you want to update something, so ultimately get is a get, post is in layman's term, it is called a create, get can be a read or a query depending on the scenario. Post is a create, put is an update. So if you want to update something, you have to identify which particular record you want to update. So here also you will be able to create one record at a time. Put will allow you updating one record at a time, but it will need the key parameter. But for example, if I am willing to update one record, okay, out of all the 1,000 record which I have. So you have to pass the key parameter that, okay, this travel one is the one that I want to update. So the type will change from here, get to update, get to put, but you have to pass the key parameter. So I can say key parameters are required. And earlier for the create, you used to implement the create entity. In case of a managed wrap, this particular thing will work only with certain internal mapping by without any explicit logic implementation unless and until specifically required. Okay. So in normal REST API item, you can say put will need a key parameter, and here in SEGW you use to implement a method called update entity, but body parameter will be required. Why? Because for example, I do have a information of a start date and I want to update the start date. So you have to pass, right? Like what is a new start date? So where you can pass it in the HTTP body parameter. Okay. And this is the URI which contains the key and the relevant URI parameters. In case of a delete, you have to pass again a key parameter. For example, I want to delete the travel number 1. So you have to pass which particular record you want to delete, and you will be able to delete only one. And you have to pass the key parameter. And in legacy, you used to implement the delete entity. In manage wrap, you won't have to implement any specific logic if you are going with the database entry delete. So there are specific implementation that will also come into picture that we'll talk about in a later phase. But the body parameter will not be required in this case. Same goes with this. Okay. So there is I can say a matrix which any REST API architecture will follow. It's not only SAP based. If you are also going with any sort of non-SAP third party open source APIs as well, the same architecture will be followed. Okay, so we have already learned the read and query because this is something that we were seeing, I guess, all this while you are opening the object page, while you are, for example, if I just go over here, while you are clicking on booking detail, you would also be seeing that, okay, there is another call which is getting triggered by using the navigation, by passing the key, and its relevant bookings are being derived. So these are all the things we have already seen. But for the create, update, delete, which is a main magic of wrap,